Hey, I'm the composer and poet Andrew Lloyd Fry, and this is an introduction into the album Sleep by Max Richter. So I want to talk just a little bit about some things about Max Richter, just in general, some of the context around this piece, and then we're going to talk about some of the tracks kind of in a non-technical musical way, but just kind of in this broad, like, as a listener, here's some things to pay attention to. Without getting too technical. So first off, let's talk a little bit about Max Richter. I would put him pretty squarely in the minimalist, classical minimalism tradition. And I feel like in minimalism, there's kind of like two strands. And some minimalism is just like a little bit more shock value minimalism. And it's like, this is so repetitive and so unexpected. And a lot of like the early minimalist pieces were like that. Where it's just like, kind of like how performance art can be shocking, kind of a brand of minimalism that goes that way. And then there's also this other kind of shoot that's just like stripped down language. It's not like reinventing a new world, and a lot of it's pretty basic, and it's just really lovely. Like RBO Peart would fall in that category, a chunk of Philip Glass's music, and then Max Richter falls like squarely in that group. Now, reading some stuff that he wrote about his own music, he talked about he's not afraid to appeal directly to the emotions, which I think is a key piece to his music. And it's, I mean, kind of a cliche way of saying it is like the brain and the heart, which is, or logic and heart, and that's probably extra potent if you're in the classical music, which I think it's if we had to say which one of those is dominated, I would say the brain has dominated that world versus like the emotions. And if the emotions are dominating and the brain is not, then we don't have to be complex. We don't have to be like, whoa, we're like exploring new crazy harmonies or something like that. And a lot of his music is pretty simple, but it sounds good. So let's dive in to talk about Sleep. So first off, this is an example of somebody doing something where it's like, I feel like the critics would make fun of this. I haven't read much about it. Like, I feel like somebody could say, I like Max Richter's music while I'm sleeping, as like a jab. And then he comes out with an album, Sleep. Another example is like Ornette Coleman. Like, I feel like people could have said like, oh, this sounds like kids playing instruments. And then he made an album with his 10-year-old son playing drums. So that's just like, that feels like the thing people can make fun of him for, and then he just like, okay, here's music for sleeping. And that's not based on anything specific, but just like what I feel like people could say. So this piece is called Sleep. Its original version is 8 hours long. So that's pretty extreme, and the idea is you can turn this on and it can play during your sleep cycle. I think that's interesting. I've not listened to the 8-hour version. I'm less interested in music playing while I'm sleeping. So this, what I'm going to talk about, he took sections of that and made like an album worth of material. And I really like this music. But yeah, I have not listened to the whole 8-hour version. Full disclosure there. Okay, so the other thing I think that's interesting about this is he has done concerts, the full 8-hour piece, and a ticket gets you a bed. So you can sleep during the concert. I think that's interesting. I don't know if that's an experience I would go for, but I think that's fun. Okay, so let's talk about the pieces. Now, if you look at the titles of this, the pieces, so the first one, Dream 3, second one, Path 5, Space 11, Dream 13, Space 12, Path 19, Dream 8. So every title starts with Dream, Path, or Space, and if like all the dream pieces are very related, all the path pieces are very related, and the space pieces. So that's just a real simple thing to pay attention to. Now this, the first piece, Dream 3, opens up on piano, and it's just super slow, playing quarter notes, and it's like boom, boom, boom. And it's, I am continually shocked how much I like the music and how little is there. I mean, it's like kind of like the proof of the power that of like a minimalist expression can be really, really powerful and really, really simple. And the way he voiced those chords, it's tense, and it's like it's just like the total sweet spot on the piano down low, and the way those notes are spread out. So then we have like one cycle of just the piano, just doing these quarter note things. And then the cello comes in on the melody. Now it's almost stretching the definition of what a melody could be, because it's so, like, the notes are so long. It's like, just a long time on one note, and then it starts to get a little bit more movement. But especially initially when it comes in, it's like you almost, is this a melody? I mean, kind of. And then after a cycle of that, then more strings come in and kind of like accompaniment part. So that's part one, or track one. Track two, path 5, has a little bit of a cathedral-y feel, a little bit of like a old world Gregorian chant vibe, and a couple reasons for that. So we have an organ playing, so that's one. And then we have multiple voices, and I think even just the amount of reverb on the voices kind of gives it that cathedral-y thing. So we have this main melody that comes in that's consistent on the voice. So it's kind of like the first main thing that comes on. And that just does not go away. So when that comes in, we hear that as the melody, and that just is on repeat through the whole piece. So then there's some organ kind of moving around in the background, and that goes on for a while. And then another voice comes in. And by the way, the voices aren't singing words, they're just singing notes. Max Richter does this technique a lot, where he'll bring in something and it's like the melody, but it's like close enough to the harmony, and it's slow enough, and probably close enough to the harmony without getting too technical. It's like chord tones, a lot of it's chord tones. So when it comes in, it's like, okay, that's the melody. And that goes on for a while. And then he brings in another voice, and this thing keeps going, and now this voice is on top. And because the way he constructed this a melody, now it can become the background part, even though it's not changing. And then we hear this as like, the part resting on top. Which that's what happens here. We have this one voice that continues throughout, and we hear it by itself. So it's like, okay, that's the melody. And then something else comes on top, and then this takes more of our attention. Okay, so that's track 2. Track 3, space 11. This piece is more like ambient and drone, electronic. And that's another thing I appreciate about Max Richter. I think he mixes like classical music, minimalism, ambient, drone music, and electronics all together in a way that feels like really seamless. And that I feel like that could come across as like, I don't know, like just not smooth, especially from track to track, and especially this album. I think just the whole thing, how it goes together, and those different elements work really well together and really complement each other. Okay, so that was track 3. Track 4, Dream 13. Okay, so this one's interesting. So the vocal part from path 5, path 5, that the vocalist was singing, now becomes the piano part in Dream 13. So, is that right? No, I'm sorry. That happens later. Wrong track. Okay, Dream 13. What's interesting about Dream 13 is it's in 7/8. And if you don't know what that means, that just means the way the notes are grouped together is a group of 7, which is just really unusual. So if you're listening, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And often that it's much more common for that to be in 4 or 3. So that's a distinct thing about Dream 13. Also, the cello melody is echoing something from Dream 3. And if this is Dream 13, Dream 3, so it's like taking a chunk of that melodic material and inserting it down here. Okay, track 5, Space 12, also kind of an electronic drone piece. And again, Space 11 was that, Space 12, also that. Okay, Path 19, this is the piece I was talking about earlier. So I think it's really interesting that the vocal part from the second track, Path 5, is now the piano part in Path 19. So number one, I think it's really easy to listen to this whole album and not notice that. I didn't notice that probably for years. It was years before I was like, oh, okay, that's the same part. The other thing is, like, if we're thinking about the idea of sleeps and dreams and like characters, like how our dreams do weird things and like characters come back in weird ways and just things morph in ways, like I think that's really fitting for kind of like the theme of this piece. And also in there, in that piece, so it's like the piano is playing what was like vocal part 1 in that other piece, and the violin is playing what's vocal part 2. So they've both kind of like taken on kind of like new roles, or that material's kind of been recast. And then lastly, we get to Dream 8. So this is the third piece that's entitled Dream, and this one feels very much just kind of like, okay, we've had these like kind of 3 different types of pieces. Like we've had this like slow piano cello thing, and we've had this like electronic drone thing, and we've had this vocal thing, and Dream 8 feels a little bit like I want to bring all those together. It's because it's kind of, we've had 3 different pieces, and now let's kind of mesh them all on Dream 8. This is track 8 also. And the strings feel like they're echoing the piano part of the very first track. And they're carrying the harmony, and they're just like doing those quarter notes, just like in track 1. And then this one also has voice. So this one, I feel like once it gets going, it feels like a little less less like variety once it gets going. It's kind of like, here's the thing, and it just kind of plays out. But Dream 8 and Dream 3 are probably my 2 highlight tracks on this one. Okay, that is it for an introduction to Max Richter Sleep. Hope you enjoy listening to it.